Greetings, Moors. This is episode 3 of Califia Society Perspective Series. This is Mapiel
Roger Bay.
and Montroyel. Today we'll be discussing America anciently and tying together how different areas that are promoted by being in the East is an actuality right here on American soil. Um, so you're kind of going through Lost Colonies of Ancient America by Frank Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what he'll be reading from, you can go and fact check and validate.
Absolutely. So basically, I'm reading from the Sumerian chapter 1 area of this particular book, and it was showing the connection between the Sumerians and the Peruvians and pre-Columbian American culture. And one of the PhDs, Hugh Fox, a professor at Michigan State University and the author of 6 published anthropology books, wrote of the Sumerian connection of West Africa, then the leap across the Atlantic carried by friendly currents to North America, to the New World. Now, the reason why that's important is because a lot of scholars, or some pseudo scholars, tend to believe that the only movement this way or towards America in ships happened during the time of Columbus, when it shows throughout the stages of history that it was many trips back and forth from that time, and even prior to, so within that, Fox made an important relative find in Dr. Thor Heyerdahl's Early Man in the Ocean. Kontiki Viracocha is a composite of 3 names from the same white and bearded deity in pre-Inca times. He was known on the coast of Peru as Con or Khan, and in the highlands as Tiki or Tiki. But when Inca ruled and the language Quechua spread to encompass the entire territory, the Incas recognized that the names Khan and Kontiki refers to the same deity as the one they themselves call Viracocha. They therefore grouped the 3 names together to satisfaction of all the people of their empire. The original Khan and the later amalgamated Kontiki Viracocha was revered as the founding father of Andean society. Now, the Andean society was near the Andes Mountains. Right? It also backs with Elewados, the maker of civilization, the race and history, that the second pre-dynastic Sumerian king is known as Khan. So that right there ties the Peruvians to the King Khan, which the Sumerian King Khan at the same juncture or the same timeline, right? So still talking about the Andean Khan, was known in Peruvian coast in the location of Corral. This is around 2750 to 2500 BC, and before or prior to that. So that was just a synopsis of, how they can, indoctrinate or put the thought of something somewhere else, or put that in the mindset of us that we don't believe that these places are near us, or a lot closer than perceived, right? Or or we are not these people, because we are all of these people. Right?
So you were also saying something about the Norte Chico people, which was a pre-Columbian Mesoamerican civilization of the Indus Valley.
Yeah. So the Norte Chico civilization was still another Peruvian, and they say the Sumerian Renaissance in 2047 BC is, and its I'm still gonna read it, and its violent termination by the Amorite conquerors likewise coincide with the end of the Peru Norte Chico civilization. So that right there shows the tie in to Norte Chico. Now, why is Norte Chico important? Because of the Indus Valley. So in that saying, the Indus Valley, we're still talking about near the Andes Mountains, or the Andean civilization, near the Corral. All the same people.
So they promote the Indus Valley as being in Pakistan, but we're clearly talking about America right now. So that is definitely a tie-in. It appears. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is the Norte Chico civilization. Right here, as you can see, a pre-Columbian civilization.
The Corral.
Right. Oldest known civilization of the Americas.
Right.
But then we go down here, talking about Egyptian pyramids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sumer and Mesopotamia.
Oh.
And predated the Mesoamerican Olmec.
Yeah. Oh. When this text, it mentions Urus Queen Puabi. It says died around 2600 BC, the same period assigned to Peru's Pyramid Mayor. Right? Although it certainly resembles her city's great ziggurat. Now, I don't know if you know what a ziggurat is, or a ziggurat. A ziggurat is a mound, like a pyramid. It's a pyramid. Basically what it is, a ziggurat. So that's a pyramid. And it's talking about the Peru's Pyramid Mayor, around the same time. Right? Itimen Niguru was built 600 years later, which is in any case no cause of discrepancy between such that pyramids was introduced in very start in Sumerian First Dynasty. We're talking about the Sumerian First Dynasty, predating Corral, but still 2900 Norte Chico, particularly considered the Mesopotamian impact in pre-Columbian South America.
So wait. So we're talking about pre-Columbian South America.
Mm-hmm.
And give me a date.
All right, this date right here was 2900 BC.
Okay, so.
But right. Ur was the largest city in the world in circa 2030 to 1980.
So we got, just on a simple Wikipedia search, Norte Chico civilization. And we're cross-referencing with this book. What's the title?
All right, The Lost Colonies of Ancient America from Frank Joseph.
So we're cross-referencing that. And it says on here, the timeline, 3100 BC outward, that the large-scale human settlement and communal construction became clearly apparent, which lasted until the period of decline around 1800 BC. And you see, we're dealing with the oldest known civilization in the Americas. So we're dealing with right here.
Right here.
So if we're dealing with Sumerians and Mesopotamians, which is supposed to be ancient Iraq.
Right.
So ancient Iraq is in America.
It has to be. It has to be somewhere near, somewhere in one of the Americas, north, central, or south.
Can you say that over again? Starting with the Sumerian.
So the ancient Sumeria or Mesopotamia. If you talk to anybody from Iraq right now, they'll pay homage to their ancestors. In fact, I was at a restaurant on Beach and Ball. They have all the Sumerian deities, and they got feathers and turbans on, and it might be a beard with the Isaac Hayes scruffy little thing, but connected to like a cow or something or an animal, like a sphinx type of mixture type of deal.
Right.
But they say Mesopotamia is ancient Iraq. Any Iraq person you talk to right now, classify Middle Eastern Iraqi, they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's Mesopotamia." So we have evidence right now showing that Mesopotamia is ancient America.
Ancient America.
And it was actually parallel and actually more ancient than the Olmecs based on this Wikipedia search. And we know the Olmecs, Old Mexico.
Old Mexico.
Which is another pre-Columbian civilization.
So, yeah.
And we also know Mesopotamia had the Sumerian gods. We're talking about the Anunnaki now.
Yes. Yep.
Anu, right? The root word for Anunnaki.
Yeah.
High priest Anu. Back to the Moors.
So Mesopotamia is in ancient Iraq. Iraq is America.
Yeah. So Mesos is like stands for middle. So it's basically saying Middle America.
Yeah.
So like, I think you're gonna go into the Nasi and the because these areas, it makes sense now. Peru, Tanasi and the Land of Flowers being the middle of America, looking at it as a continent, north, central, south. It's in the middle of America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Middle of America. That's crazy how all this stuff started tying together.
All ties together now.
And now we're dealing with Egyptian pyramids all in the same period. So how we got Egyptian pyramids in the same sentence with the Mesoamerican Olmecs and the Norte Chico. But they're saying Egypt is in America as well.
Yeah. And well, so how far do you want me to go in this? Do you want me to start somewhere from here? Or you want me to just go down? Start reading?
Yeah, you can start.
All right. So it mentions Tennessee and a discovery in Tennessee. They mentioned in the sense they're trying to turn it into the Red Indians. Red Indians were supposed to superimpose upon another race. That's what was mentioned by the what is his name? I want to find out his actual name when he started it. His name is James Rendell Harris, professor of ancient language, whose series essay was published by the University of London Press. Right? So he mentioned that the Red Indians were superimposed upon another race. Right? Harris begins, which disappeared. The Hopewell, he writes, were latecomers who raised the mounds of earth over a much older temple built by pharaonic Egyptian emirs to their most important deities, Isis, the queen of heavens, and her husband Osiris, the god of resurrection. The New York Times photograph plus information possibly sent to him from U.S. field investigators clearly define many of the archaeological features with which he was intimately familiar from his years of study in the Nile Valley. He refers to the excavation location monolith, if such it be, which the photograph clearly shows us is a pillar of Osiris, who was indeed worshipped as a column depicted in temple art, very much like the site standing stone. Harris found that the volunteer state very name corresponds precisely and without interpolation from the Egyptian Ten Esi, literally the land Tene of Isis, Greek for the original essay. The ancient American Russell Bennett Stanford observed the Iroquois Indian reverence for 5 ancestral clans, each one signified by the specific animal recalled, another name for the Egyptian king of the gods, Iroquois, one of the 5 totem animals associated with Amun. Stanford continues, Pati was a primal god who created himself and all that is. He ruled Upper and Lower Egypt. Pati Tuwa or Taue was a title of Amun-Ra, supreme god of the sun. As an agent for this very early god, his title means the beginning of time, primeval time, the time of creation. In the Western Hemisphere, Patawa is the chief council of deities among the Zuni, a Pueblo tribal people residing in Western New Mexico. Patawa symbolizes the Sun Father, power, kindness, dignity, and beauty. In the village of Zuni, Patawa is associated with Kachinas, spiritual figure. He is present during ceremonies celebrating the solstice. Harris continued to pursue such revealing parallels. The names Suwini or Savannah or Sawana are philological equivalent. The ground for in either case is Sawan, which has been affected by the adjectival termination in Sawani and by a reduplication of Savannah. These can easily be explained from an Egyptian standpoint. It is, however, the ground form that attracts our attention. The traveler up the Nile commonly makes his designation to be the town of Aswan, at the foot of the first cataract. The Arabic article has been prefixed to the name Suwan, which the Greeks on their part transliterated into Sweeney. Whatever it may mean, it is clearly the same name we found in Florida and in Georgia, so that in the last 2 cases, we are on track of the Egyptian colonists if we write it in the form of Suwan. It is divided at once into Sa'an, that is the children of Osiris.
So wherever you basically hear Savannah, that's the
Children of Osiris.
and that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Tennessee, you're saying is Tanasi, which is you're saying Ten is dealing with the land,
Mm-hmm.
and Asi is dealing with
Isis.
What you said about Savannah again? When you hear Savannah, that's what
Savannah is the children of Osiris.
Savannah, and that's modern day Savannah.
That's Savannah or Sawana. Because in Latin, or
Savannah, Georgia.
or not, or in classic Latin, not ecclesiastic Latin. In classic Latin, there is no V sound, so all V's are W. So that would be Sawana. So that would make sense as that being Sawana or Sawani.
Who was Savannah again?
Savannah is just a place in like it's a landmass in Florida or Georgia.
Okay.
That's very interesting. So we're talking about deities of Isis,
Mm-hmm.
and going back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
or going back to the pyramids that they promote. These are Egyptian deities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you can see, just on a simple Wikipedia of the before, it went straight into Mesoamerica and Egyptian pyramid just on the Wikipedia.
Right.
Instantly.
Right. Instantly.
You know what I mean?
Instantly.
And then you were talking about the Norte Chico
Mm-hmm.
civilization, which was an Indus Valley civilization,
Yes.
which now we know was in Peru and New Mexico.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you look it up, it promotes it as a Indian subcontinent between 7,000 and 600. Its modern name derives from its location in the valley of Indus River, but it is also commonly referred to as Indus Saravati civilization, after the Saravati River mentioned in the Vedic source, which flowed adjacent to the Indus. The Harpian civilization, after the ancient city of Harpa region, the first found in the modern era. None of these names derive from any ancient text because although scholars generally believe the people of this civilization developed a writing system known as Indus script or Harpan script, it has yet been deciphered. All three designations of modern constructs are nothing definitely known of the origin, development, decline, and fall of the civilization. Even so, modern archaeology has established a probable chronology of this periodization, but we already established in the book that we're dealing with Mesoamerica.
Mesoamerica. Mm-hmm.
And now we got some timelines. 700 to 500 BC, 55 to 28, 28 to 1900, 1900 to 1500, 1500 to 1600. So that's in the same time frame as a Olmec period.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the same time frame as the Norte Chico period.
Yep.
And we already established that the Norte Chico and the Sumerians is the same people.
Right.
Which established that Mesoamerica or Mesopotamia is America.
Right.
And as we go down, actually, I didn't see
We're
this.
still talking about, and we also mentioned Egyptians. So in the same, yeah. And I was just about to say that we also mentioned the Egyptians, and the Egyptians are still in that same time period, the same timeline.
Right.
So we're not talking about we're not moving out of the time period. We're still in the same time period.
And then we just once again, Tanasi, Horus and Isis and all this
Horus and Isis, right?
Which is Egyptian deities.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And then it says right here, just on a simple Google search, the Indus Valley civilization is now often compared with the far more famous cultures of Egypt and Mesopotamia. But this is a fairly recent development. The discovery of Harpa in 1829 was the first indication that such civilization existed in India. But you notice India is highlighted. And by that time, Egyptian hieroglyphics had been deciphered. Egyptian and Mesopotamia sites excavated and cuneiform would soon be translated by the scholar George Smith. Right. So this is where the color comes in, as if it was just some new stuff. Okay. But they still, as you can see, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mesopotamia. The throw off is India.
Yep.
Because we just already established this as America.
Right. But the throw off is always going to be called India because of the throw off from Christopher Colombo or Cristobal Colombo. That's going like in his maps of him thinking Indies or them talking about him thinking Indies, that's where they can throw in India. But we all know, that
Yeah.
he was also coming to the Caribs or the Caribbeans. So in that aspect,
Caribs.
Caribs, which is another South American.
Oh, man.
So, man.
So I would like to jump into another book, Ancient and Modern Britons, to kind of add some perspective to what he just read. So this is Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1 by David MacRitchie. Now the Claudian wrote, and for a long time after, Maurus, Maurus, signified a great deal more than a native of Mauritania. Or it may be correct to say that Mauritania implied as much, though in a different quarter, as Cynthia did. Any Latin dictionary, any old one at least, will tell you that Maurus, Maurus, is a Moor, a blackamoor, or a tawny Moor. And Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. As the last words bear nowadays a somewhat restricted meaning, it may be better to take the old-fashioned blackamoor as the nearest English rendering of Moorish, signifying thereby any black or brown-skinned man. So, wanted to throw that in there, right? Now, the same book, you go further down, it says this usage outlasted Shakespeare by at least 2 generations. In a brief narrative of encounters between the early colonists of New England and the native Indians, which is in quotations, I find it stated that these unfortunate gentlemen were intercepted by 700 Moors, with whom they fought for the space for hours, till not only they two, but Captain Sharp and 51 Christians, more lay dead upon the place. And again, that at Woodcock, 10 miles from Sconotch, on the 16th of May, was a little skirmish between the Moors and Christians, wherein there was the later 3 slain and 2 wounded, and only 2 Indians killed. So this is a book, Ancient and Modern Britons, highlighting the fact that Mauritania is where the Moors were from. And then he goes into how Moors and Indians, which the tag Indian we know is supposed to be ancient America or the indigenous Americans. That's how they sell the story. And mind you, this book is about how the author David MacRitchie is uncovering the ancient people of Britain, ancient and modern Britons. So keep that in context as how he's looking at the ancient Picts, specifically of this Aboriginal area of Europe, which is in Britain. He's making a comparison all through this book of how these are the same people in ancient America, the same features, even though he's using colorable terms like Indian, but as you can see, he'll use colorable terms and then use real terms like the Indians fought the Moors, or the Moors killed the Christians. In New England, you know, this is a colony, right? It's supposed to do it, right? We're talking about the East Coast, America. So put all these things together, you start seeing how we were already here. Now, more evidence would be about the siege, right? there were evidence of seeds of cotton seeds that originated in another part of the planet.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, since the seeds, well, let's just want to definitely give clarity on who I'm speaking of. This is person's name. I don't know where it is.
While you're looking for that, I found something very interesting. It says Genelari further supports his theory by the assertion that animals of American origin, unknown to Africa, are to be found among the Egyptian hieroglyphs and in a painting or sculptures on the vases and monuments of Utria. He also pointed to evidence of the existence in Italy of races which were neither Aryan nor Semitic, under the various names of Aborigines, Sikilu, Liguru, Umbri, etc. And he also suggests that Phoenicians were of this copper-colored hue.
You say Indonesians or what?
The Phoenicians were of
Phoenician.
a copper-colored hue.
Mm.
It is perhaps scarcely correct to describe this a third division of dark-skinned people, for Signer Generelli's red is not very different from Professor Huxley's chocolate brown, the colors ascribed by each to the ancient Egyptians. So the Phoenicians, Egyptians, copper color. Everybody know any ancient dictionary, the definition for America, American, the copper color people, the copper color people.
Mm-hmm.
So the Americans, Phoenicians, all these same people, Egyptians, the same people.
Same people.
And this is ancient and modern Britons. He's making a connection from what he's seeing in Britain, all and other places of the world, really comparing Britain to America. Because as you can see from the previous book, it is America.
Yes, yes, it is America. And it was Jim R. Bailey. He had a lot to say. So, and Jim R. Bailey explains all domestic, this is about the cotton, all domestic American cottons are what are known as tetraploids or plods. Tetraploids. That is, they contain two sets of recognizable distinct genes. One set resembles the gene of American wild cotton, the other, the genes of all Asiatic cottons. That's all Asiatic cottons, domestic and wild. There is no possible way this could have come about except by the interbreeding of the two stocks. We know that cotton was being used in Peru in the 4th millennium BC using fibers from the crossbred Asian American plant. The conclusion seems to follow without doubt at some time before that the seeds of Asian cotton had been brought into America, and they did not come by natural means. The cotton grown in America was a hybrid between Southeast Asian cotton and the Native American cotton, and thus also points to the transoceanic context.
Is it Southeast cotton and what?
Southeast Asian cotton.
And what else?
And Native American. And Native American cotton.
So
and that's what American cotton
is. Cotton.
So people going back and forth, seafaring.
Right. And it said all Asiatic cottons. So let's think about that. So it's not just like, we're not talking about just one. We're talking about the multitude of all of the Asiatic cottons mixed with the American cotton. that right there tells you the story of how much we were frequently using, or frequently around each other. You know what I'm saying? Just passing things along. Well before even the thought of a Christ and a Columbus or a Columbo.
Now, when you were reading that, 'cause this is back to Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1 by David McRitchie. It says the date of the discovery, it's in quotations too, of America is every now and then pushed farther back. The claim of Columbus has long yielded to that of the Norsemen, and they in turn have given place to some Buddhist priests from China who reached Mexico in the 5th century.
Mm-hmm.
There is a theory that the Phoenicians colonized Florida at an earlier period still. But this has two readings. And then it says that the Phoenicians were so-called white men, then they have been traditionally whites of the Shawnees. If they were, as singular generally suggests, a copper-colored race, then they were likely to be progenitors of the Shawnee themselves, or the ancestors of them, who assert that their forefathers were not indigenous but came across the ocean from whence they know not, in memory of which event they continue to celebrate a yearly sacrifice for their safe arrival in America up to the beginning of the present century. Another such colonization is that of the Welsh under Prince Madoc in the year of 1170, of which there is still distinct distinction upon the side of the Atlantic, and some curious collaborative facts upon the other side. So we're talking about Buddhist priests from China who reached Mexico in the 5th century.
The 5th century. That's 500.
That's consistent with back to the Olmecs.
Yep, consistent.
And the Norte Chico.
And it's still consistent. Still talk about the Olmecs being in there around the 400, 500. Yeah.
Like Buddhist priests were in Mexico?
Buddhist priests.
1500s?
500s.
Oh, 500s. That's what you said. Okay. That's what I was trying to get correct.
It says moray, meaning dark red or copper color. But then okay, going in.
Real quick, you said Mauritania is where the Moors was from?
Mauritania.
Yeah.
And so it's like their original land?
Yeah, so people like be named after the land or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so Mauritania, the land of the Moors.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like he says, this is back to ancient and modern Britons. There has been much written about Mere Menin and other water people. Like we were seafarers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the subject is usually treated mythologically, like a myth. Although capable, I venture to think of being interpreted realistically. This view of the origin of Moris, which is a Moor, must, however, be disregarded here, and our attention turned more directly to the dwellers among the moors and marshes, whether they gave their name to these places or were so styled because they inhabited them, they were at any rate known as Moors. That is to say, this became the general pronunciation given to the word. The original root seems likelier to have been Moor, as seen as Cornish, Armorican, Armorican,
Armorican.
Armorican, and other languages.
Wow. Armorican. Yeah, it sounds like
Sounds like a
Moroccan.
Moroccan.
Sounds just like I'm Moroccan.
Yeah.
Armorican. Armorican. Sound like American.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Crazy all the words and names have like relationships to each other.
He said, Lempriere gives several nations bearing names beginning with M-O-R. The Mori or Morinus in India, and the Moroni in that country also, and the Morini, a people of Belgic Gaul on the shores of the British Ocean are examples. The Mori or Mauritania, the Mori of Mauritania, are perhaps the most notable examples of a nation bearing this name, although in a slightly altered shape. Thus, consideration of this word and of localization of races thus named, it is not irrelevant at this point, for although it may not be easy to trace their route and the date of their arrival, a branch of this family did inhabit Britain and are not only known as Mori and Moors, but as Moravians or Morianus, identical with the name of those in India. So we got the same people in India, in Britain, and in America.
And in America, all the same people.
Which part?
That sentence, like two sentences back.
All the same people. The same people.
It said a branch of this family. So it's talking about Maurice or Mauritania. So a branch of this family did inhabit Britain and are not only known as Mori and Moors, but also as Moravianuses or Morianuses, identical with the name of those in India. Murray men and people of Moray or Moravia. This name Moravia was given to two districts in Scotland, one of the most important in the north central and the other in the southern portion of the country, that the Picts, known to the Romans as Mori, were finally divided into two sections inhabiting these localities. It is speaking fact, which is well to remember at this juncture. The smaller district in the south has been the named father of a family distinguished in Scottish history. The Mories of Philahoo and Selkirkshire, whose ancestor Archibald de Morvia was among those who subscribed to the oath of fealty to England, to Edward I of England in 1296.
Wow.
So the Maoris is an Aboriginal Scottish, and as you can see, the Picts was like a clan or state tribe, but the Romans looked at them as Maori, just period.
Maori.
Like that's their nationality.
Yeah.
Maori, Moor, same thing. That's crazy.
And we talking about
You said Moors from Mauritania inhabited Britain.
Yeah.
Then
So the ancient
when you
people.
talking about Romans.
Maori.
goodness.
Look, it has been seen that one of the modern forms of this word moray or Mori Another form is Moorish. So anybody with the name Morris,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing.
Morris. Man.
England has never been invaded from Morocco during historic times, nor even in this dance of property of the people of Morocco. It is particularly British, and yet the Moorish origin. So British, this author was shocked of the evidence of Moorish origin
Moorish.
because he never seen the people of Morocco invade this area.
Right.
Did they invade Britain? Like,
So when did they invade Britain?
so this dude still got the point because it's to the beginning of his book. He's still shocked of what he's uncovering.
Yeah, like where? Look, how's all these Moors here
Yeah.
in Britain? It just don't make sense.
Yet, but the date of its introduction into Britain by the Moors was the date of the landing of the Pictish people, or the Picts.
Mm-hmm.
So the Moors that were in Britain were the Picts.
Yeah. And so ever that they may have seen. Yep, so the Picts. In Shakespeare's time, the audience at the Globe accepted the word as meaning of a black man, and some quotations, and into blackamoor.
Yeah.
The common people of the country are not likely to have known much about the ultra British Moors. Not enough at any rate to have made the word an everyday term for a black man. Nor can the Moors of heraldry be explained sufficiently by the theory of the founders of the families bearing Moors as supporters and Moor heads as crests. Wow. Had won their spurs in assisting the Spaniards to expel their Moors.
To expel the Moors. Kick them out.
The Lady of Utah.
Yeah. So after 1492, they got
Oh, I was just reading that too. Like,
expelled.
in 1492 is when they started dividing the term like modern history and like ancient history.
Mm-hmm.
It was also
Mhm.
the year where they
Yeah.
where the Moors were defeated in Europe.
They say expelled, but
Expelled, yeah.
I was just reading that in that little pamphlet I was there gave me.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's crazy how that all ends up like coming back together. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, David McRitchie, yeah, I'll be on.
Right. I want to say Frank Joseph is as well.
So
I know a lot of these PhDs and different things of that nature were Albions as well. They were definitely not melanated or Moorish. So
interesting.
very interesting.
I wanted to tie in now Saint Maurice, how he was born in Thebes, which is Egypt.
And Thebes.
You said earlier that people with the name Maurice have
Which
Moors background.
honestly, if Saint Maurice being born in Thebes, that's Egypt, kind of makes me think about something. All right, so I was doing a little bit of pondering, and I also saw that Ur was one of the biggest cities during the time period of like 20, I think it said 2050 to like 1800. But I also saw Ur somewhere else. I saw Ur where Abram was from Ur in the Bible, the Chaldean. It's talking about Abram being a Chaldean from Ur. And when he left Ur, he went into Egypt, or so-called Egypt, and was talking to Sarah about how good she looked in comparison to, just in the comparison to him not wanting to get killed over her looking good. You know what I'm saying? So they mentioned that in the Bible, but it also is talking about Ur. And when you're talking about Thebes, you know what I'm saying, like, which was another derivative place in what we know as Egypt, but of course, Thebes was upper or one of the upper or lower Egypt. I'm not sure. I don't
Yeah.
know that specifically.
Look, it said Thebes, known to the ancient Egyptians as Waset, Wasetian, was an ancient Egyptian city located along the Nile, about 900 kilometers south of the Mediterranean. Its ruins within the modern Egypt city of Luxor. Thebes was the main city of the fourth Upper Egypt.
Fourth Upper Egypt.
So he was born in the 3rd century.
That's crazy.
So once again, this is a dark man.
Mm-hmm.
He's a patron saint of Germany, Saint Maurice.
Saint Maurice.
Moore. We just read
Moore.
Ancient of Modern Britons.
Anybody named Moore, or Maurice, or
Mortis,
Morris,
or
Morris,
Morris.
There's a more.
All right. Now it was the leader of the legendary Roman Theban Legion.
Theban Legion.
Theban short for Thebes.
Thebes.
In the 3rd century, one of the favorite and most widely venerated saints of that group. He was a patron saint of several professions, locales, and kingdoms.
That's crazy.
He was also revered in the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria and other churches of Oriental Orthodoxy. So this Oriental, that's interesting right there.
Yeah, the word Oriental is interesting. Like they use that
as like they're talking about these Asian,
yeah,
high yellow people with slanted eyes. But that's really us.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're the Oriental,
right? Because what does Oriental mean? Oriental means like the land of the rising sun, right? Something to do with sun, right?
The Orient.
The Orient.
Oriental.
Or people of the rising sun. But it's still something to do with sun and sun people.
And we are sun people.
Orion. Orion's belt.
Yep. Yep. Stars.
Yeah. So we're talking about ancient principles.
Still talking about ancient principles.
Are the original people.
Yeah. Like, stars.
And like I said, Todd goes into that Oriental versus Occidental, which would be the mankind. Or
amalgamation.
The Albion would be the Occidental.
Yeah.
So the Occidental mixing with the Oriental is what we have.
Yeah. Mulatto.
Right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Very interesting.
And this is 300s. So this is actually this Roman ideology wasn't Constantine yet.
No, this was before Constantine.
This was about 200 years before the Nicene Council.
Yeah, so this is before it's before the Nicene Council, before it was still Coptic. That's what they say, Oriental Orthodox. So that's when they say Coptic Orthodox Church, which was still basically talking about the sciences. You know what I'm saying? They weren't in retrospect consistently dogmatic.
It was the beginning of it. Yes, that's interesting.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
You have anything else or?
No, honestly, well, I mean, we always got something else, but right now we just gonna, we'll let y'all make it for that, I feel like that was enough for the time. You know what I'm saying? For the time.
We try to keep it on ancient America, different sources and cross-referencing to validate that we talking about right here, anciently in the Bible. It's right here.
Yeah.
Mesoamerica, Mesopotamia, Mauritania.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear in Northwest Africa, you talking about here.
Yeah.
And really all you gotta do is just check the timeline. It's not even to speak for itself. They tell on themselves.
Truth be told.
Yeah, the names too. Like you can even like discovering the names. They all got a connection to each other.
Yeah.
It's another one. It's another good read right here that show you, that tie you to the land and show you that.
What's that one called?
This one right here is called When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. And this right here is a more. I wrote this, but And even in that retrospect, it's like it's telling you, the story about the land, like it being on the land and the Exodus and all that good stuff being on the land. So it's just, just letting you know that a lot of this information is here, been here. A lot of the spirituality and belief systems, respond from this land because we are the ones that were high priests and spiritual people in that aspect. So we just got to get back to it, doing what we're doing in our higher selves.
Get back to the ancestral knowledge.
Right. The ancient ways. Just getting back to the ancient ways. Way of thinking, way of acting, belief system and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this
That was a
been
good one. I like that one.
That's been episode 3
Sure.
of Califia Society Perspective Series. This is Mafiel
And Razor Bay.
and Montreal. Peace and love. Islam.
Islam.